Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show. I've been very much looking forward to this part of the show because we're going to have some top analysis of what went on Thursday and what it all means for the next general election. So I'm joined by Lord Robert Hayward, Tory peer pollster, an expert on all things Conservative. And I'm also the Independent's chief political columnist, and I'm saying an expert on all things Labour. So we've got blue and red represented on this sofa very nicely. Let's just first of all make some analysis of how important these by-elections are when it comes to the next general election. Robert, I mean, do they signify much? A week's a long time in politics. The next election could be 16 months away.
For the next general election, the answer is no. But for the next few months, they set the mood. Because we're now in recess, well, the Commons are, the peers don't go into recess till next week. But we're in recess, and therefore the mood until the party conferences has been set by these by-elections.
John, how good has it been for Labour? Obviously, they've had this stellar success in Selby.
Yeah.
And yet all of the newspapers are reflecting on this row between Starmer and Khan over the ULEZ. We've heard from James Schneider earlier in the show that there's disaffection amongst the GMB union over Starmer being, frankly, too right-wing, they think, on strikes and protests. Where are Labour? How would you characterise them now?
Oh, well, I mean, I think Selby was the significant result. I mean, that was a Blair-era result. It was better than some of the by-election swings that Tony Blair achieved before the 97 election. And that is extraordinary to me, given the lack of excitement and charisma around Keir Starmer. It just shows how badly the Conservatives have made a mess of things.
But if there
recently.
was more excitement around Keir Starmer, would it be a better result? I mean, people often talk about, is it 92, is it 97?
Well, it's much more 97 than 92, I think. But the whole point about Uxbridge...
But they're not passionate about Starmer. I mean, I wrote a column about this on Saturday. Probably hasn't gone
And so
down.
did I.
Nobody wants Keir Starmer to be Prime Minister.
That's not true.
Come on, John. Nobody. It's not like the Blair era where people are lining the streets to meet this bloke. They don't find him particularly inspiring, Starmer.
No, and the Uxbridge by-election was a warning of what could happen over the next 16 months if people think that, a vote for Labour is going to cost them.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. If people think that a Labour government is going to raise taxes, then that Labour lead is a bit soft.
Robert.
I was going to say, Selby is a very good result for Labour, no question. But it's more because the Conservative vote went down dramatically.
Yes.
The Labour vote didn't go up by even 3,000 votes. The turnout was low by midsummer by-election standards. So, yes, it is a great result for the Labour Party, as is Somerton and Frome for the Lib Dems. But it is not something that says it's absolutely clear, because, as you're saying, there's not a great love for the Labour Party or for Keir Starmer at the moment.
Yes.
And that's the one hope that the Conservatives have got, is that they can transform the perception of the Tories from being a government at war with itself over the last 2 years, over Partygate and the like, and move on to a good, competent administration.
Well, let's talk about what each side needs to do, because the suggestion in the papers today, Robert, first of all, with the Tories, is that they need to kind of lurch more rightwards, they need to have a bonfire of all of their green policies, that they need to bring tax down, they need to be tougher on immigration. Everyone's welcoming Rishi Sunak's tough stance when it comes to Farage's banking situation. Is that the right direction of travel? Will that gain them votes?
No, the first thing they have to do is be able to put behind in the public's mind the events of the last 2 years, effectively show that they are a good administration. The government had good inflation figures. There were good retail figures hidden by the by-election results this week as well. They have to continue on that at the same time as dealing with the migration bill, which has now passed Parliament, etc. So the first message is not to go in for a mass of policies. It's just to be a good administration, which unfortunately the government hasn't been for the last few months or years.
And John, on Starmer, there's this talk that he just needs to kind of, hold the Ming vase in his hand and not let it break and not say very much, not put out a policy platform, just leave the Tories to implode. The danger of that is he seems very much soundbite over substance.
Well, but that's fine.
Is it? Is it fine?
And what is even better is what's happening in Nottingham this weekend, which is there's people criticising him and attacking him and having a go at him for not wanting to spend enough and not wanting to give the trade unions what they want. the more of that we hear, the better from Keir Starmer's point of view. He has got to persuade the British public, the floating voter, that he is not going to just spend money and raise taxes.
But what about the James Schneider factor, if I can call it that? You know, this disaffection from some in the left of the party.
Absolutely not a problem.
James Driscoll and all the rest
great.
of it.
The more of that we have, the more of that Keir Starmer has, the better.
But then you're saying that Keir Starmer positions himself as a righty in a left-wing party, effectively, to keep everyone happy.
Well, it's the Tony Blair lesson.
I get that. But doesn't that only work if you do have the charisma of Tony Blair? I've had Michael Gove this morning calling him a shabby tribute act.
Well, that'll do. I don't think people really want another Tony Blair, actually. I think they'd be perfectly satisfied with someone who's competent and boring.
On competence and boring, that's kind of a description that you could apply to the Prime Minister as well, Rob.
Yes.
Rishi Sunak, steady as he goes. You know, I'm competent, I'm working hard behind the scenes. Is that what Tory voters actually want? Because at the moment, he's not encouraging them to come out for him. They're staying at home.
They are, and having said that, there was a very positive response to his renegotiation of the Windsor Framework. He's got the migration legislation
Was there
through.
a positive response to that?
Yes, there was. If you look at
it?
Oh yeah, they didn't understand the Windsor Framework per se, but if you look at the sort of people who responded in the opinion polls to the fact that he was tackling what hadn't been tackled, which was all the leftover tales of Brexit in one direction or another.
Yeah, that seemed as if he had kind of actually...
It was a message. I've worked on it. I've got the detail. I've delivered a sensible agreement with the EU on this particular field. The trouble is, there's a lot of other things to do, and also, particularly, the economy / cost of living, which in all opinion polls comes out as the prime concern for voters of whatever political
John, is it
persuasion.
still the economy stupid and not this kind of battle of personalities then? Because we've got two politicians at the helm who seem to be lacking in that kind of Boris Johnson stroke personality.
Well, I think Rishi Sunak, I think he's being a bit unfair. I think he's got a bit more personality than Keir Starmer. But actually, I mean, the question is, can the economy be turned around in time? And I think there's got to be a very big question mark over that. And how short are the voters' memories? Because, I mean, there's no doubt that Liz Truss episode did so much damage to the Conservative brand. I mean, I hadn't really realised, because I thought, you know, it only lasted 7 weeks. Rishi Sunak came in and sorted everything out and put everything right, and yet the damage done to the Conservative Party's reputation runs so deep.
So you are saying that it is like 97. So are you predicting an absolute bloodbath? I mean, we know that...
Well, no, because Labour starts from so much further back,
okay.
actually, that if I mean, it's what Keir Starmer said to Tony Blair at the Blairfest last week, was that if he gets a Tony Blair swing at the next election, that gives him a majority of one. Yeah. It's not quite right, because Scotland's shifted, but it means a small Labour majority.
We've got less than a minute left. A very quick report card, as it's the summer holidays. What grade would you give Rishi Sunak, Robert?
C, needs to keep on trying at what the route he's following.
John, what report card would you give to Keir Starmer?
I'd give him a B+. I mean, I think he's done an astonishing job. I mean, everybody's underestimated him.